Great. I am so super excited about today's podcast episode because I have one of my favorite and best friends on here. Her name is Wendy Verwey, and she is from the lovely Canada area. So, we're actually going to dive in and talk about something that I think is one of the things that is really popular right now with like side hustles, turning your passions into business, like finding ways to really monetize your unique skills and passions and all these cool things. So, we're going to kind of talk about that today. And I'm going to let Wendy introduce herself and tell you a little bit about herself. So, thank you for being here, Wendy.
Oh, thank you for having me, Laura. I feel exactly the same way. You're just such a bright light in my life, and I'm so glad to know you. So thanks for having me on your show today. So I'm Wendy Verwey. I'm a money and life strategist out of Red Deer, Alberta, in Canada. So I get to say that I live in a postcard, which is kind of cool. um, get to take advantage of all the beautiful mountains and good stuff out here. So yeah, I a little bit about me and my story. I was in the corporate world for 15 plus years doing, the 9 to 5 stuff, all of that. And partway through that, kind of the bottom dropped out of life. And I had what I call my country song year, where I had to reshape everything in my life. My husband left. I was then a single mom. I still am a single mom. um, working full time, all of that, and then had several family members pass away, kind of one after the other. And I just had to redefine everything in my life. So I was able to start by taking control of my money, which led me to early retirement far sooner than I ever thought was possible. So I retired at 41 as a single mom and have created, I call it a life that I don't need a vacation from, where I only do work that doesn't feel like work, that lights me up, that feels really good and fulfilling. Um, and yeah, I've kind of become an expert at figuring out and helping other people figure out how to monetize what they already love, do, and have. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your backstory and stuff. And I love that you said you live in a postcard. I'm like, there will be one day, hopefully, that I just get to come visit you or you get to come visit me or something. Cause I'm like, we talk quite often and you know, we're always talking about like doing adventures together. I literally had a dream that we go kayaking. So we've got to make that happen.
Absolutely. Kentucky's supposed to be beautiful too. I've never been that way. So
Yeah, yeah,
and
lots of cool things. We have the world's largest cave, so I mean, there's cool stuff here. So anyway, but like one of the things is you were talking about, I love that you shared your story of how, you got to the situation where you really had to take control of what you were doing for your life. You became solely dependent upon yourself for your living, for your future, for your, taking care of your kids and just taking care of yourself. So, you were able to kind of, take that initiative
yeah.
to like, I have to figure out how I can supply myself with income. But like you said, you wanted to create a life that you didn't need a vacation from. And
Yeah.
I love that for the fact that like I've heard you tell your story multiple times. And like the part that that really excites me and that I kind of want you to get into is you had to do some sort of self-discovery or figuring out what it is that you really gravitated to and really enjoyed so that you could build this life you don't need a vacation from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many times we get stuck in what we think we should be doing.
Hmm.
And, that's where I was. And I could have stayed in this corporate job. I could have, jumped into another one immediately if I was coming from a place of scarcity where, I was looking at, well, I have to provide for my family, which I did, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, we need to eat. Growing boys, they cost a lot in groceries, especially these
Yes.
days.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you know, I was with my dad when he passed away, and I've told this story a few times, and I was holding his hand as he literally took his last breath. And I just had this kind of vision of my life and thinking, what am I doing with my life? I'm not afraid of dying, but I'm not truly living.
Mm,
I was kind of the shell of a human being. I did all the things that I was supposed to do to have this definition of a successful life, but I didn't feel it at all. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted, any of those sorts of things. And I mean, for me, that was the epiphany. And a lot of people get to that point, right? Like if you're battling an illness or some kind of trauma, or something major happens to sort of wake you up. And that's what it was for me. It was the divorce and death of my dad and my father-in-law and my dog, and basically this entire life that I used to know died
mm,
in that year, in about 10 months. And I had to redefine all of those things for myself. I had to look at, who am I as a person? I was no longer a wife, but who was I going to be as a co-parent? Who was I going
mhm,
to be as a single mother? Um, who was I going to be as a daughter, even though one of my parents has passed away? What do I actually love? What lights me up? Because I was really stuck in this place of, again, shoulds, right? I should
mhm,
just go to work. I should be happy with my paycheck. And, I was, but what I was able to do was redefine what I wanted that money to be for. You know what I mean? So
mhm,
instead of looking at, I was paying all of this money to other people to buy me things that were supposed to fulfill me, and I found that they weren't fulfilling anymore. So,
mm,
like, okay, well, what can I do to create a life that is fulfilling? Um, and there are so many ways to do it. I mean, I've when I dug in, I started looking at my money and just really looking at, what am I spending? And do the things that I'm spending on provide me with joy and satisfaction?
mhm.
Because if they don't, why am I spending on those things? It was really just questioning every opinion I've ever had of myself, of the world around me, all of that. And it took time. It
Yeah,
wasn't just an overnight, okay, now I'm just gonna sell it all and move to the Sahara or something. But I was able
yeah.
to kind of right size what I actually wanted. When I looked at what I was doing with my life. At that point, I was living at an acreage property that I'd bought with my husband, and it was supposed to be our dream home. And it was just a nightmare for me because the house was too big. I had to, take a couple hours to cut the grass every weekend, do maintenance on the house, take care of all the things that fill a house. Um, and I had no time to just breathe. Everything felt like a responsibility and a weight. And so what I looked at was, okay, instead of looking at or complaining about what I don't want, let's look at what I do want. And what I
Mhm,
did want was peace and simplicity, right? And for me to be able to do that, I did sell the house and I rented a small place with my boys and created a bunch of time freedom, energy freedom, money freedom by no longer paying for the things that I thought um, were supposed to create a successful life.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like that, you know, even though it's like we're kind of talking about, turning passions or things that we like into something that's profitable, what you did is sometimes that step that maybe some of us overlook.
Hmm.
We're so ready to like jump into whatever it is to get the profits out of it.
Ah.
Instead of like what you're talking about is you really just took a good hard look at what do I really want my life to be like?
Yeah.
What is actually going to bring me that joy and fulfillment? And, how am I setting myself up to accomplish that? Like with the house that you used to live in, it was more of a hassle
Mhm.
for you to live in. Like even though it looks nice, it's the thing that everyone thinks you should have.
Yeah.
It wasn't ideal for you.
Exactly.
and you figured that out. You made the change that was necessary to do that. And I think sometimes even as we're, like I think of the um like network marketing businesses.
Yeah.
So many people run into those. They're like, "Oh, I could sell this product, and if I sell a bunch of it, I can make some extra money." But it's like at the same time, if we're not clear on where that's going to go, if we're
Yeah.
not clear on why in the world we want to join this company or what it's going to do for us, then you know, it's something that won't really be fulfilling. It
Yeah.
won't really give us that profit that we're looking for because it's not all about the money, it's about the achievement of true success and fulfillment in our lives.
Absolutely. I see it all the time. I see online coaches, all kinds of get rich quick schemes, oh, you can make 10,000 a month by working a minute a day, you know,
Mhm.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. And, you can buy Bitcoin and get into crypto and buy real estate and do all this stuff. But like no income is truly passive. Right.
Yeah.
And when I talk about work that doesn't feel like work, it's because it's things that light me up. I mean, I have a bunch of different income streams. Um, that that feel good to me.
Mhm.
I have a rental suite, so I guess technically I invest in real estate.
Yeah.
But my rental suite is I've set it up in a way that fits with my life, right? So it's not in a really high tourist area or anything like that. Um, so I don't have a lot of partiers coming and I don't have to worry about people
Mhm.
destroying my space. Like it's in a small residential area in a medium-sized city, very working class. The people that I get here, they come and stay for several weeks most of the time. I've got a couple in right now. They're relocating to our city, so they're looking for a house. So they're staying here while they look for their permanent home. I've had
Mhm.
people that come and they're going to school or they're here for a couple weeks to work at a job or they're visiting family and things like that, right? And then I get to meet these people and help them in whatever capacity they need, right?
Mhm.
I had a couple, they came from California and they were having a baby through a local surrogate here.
Mhm.
So they came in and they had come during COVID. I mean, the baby was coming. There was there was
Yeah.
no changing, no delaying that trip, right?
Mhm.
And so I was able to help them, get the paperwork to get across the border, so that they could actually come in the middle of COVID when everything was so restricted. I was able to set them up with, online grocery delivery and whatever. And then when the baby came, um, I was able to help them, like let them use my printer so they could print off their immigration forms and stuff like that so that they could leave with their new
Yeah.
child, all of that kind of stuff. And like none of that felt like work. That felt
Mhm.
like pure joy
Yeah.
for me, right? So it's
Mhm.
not about cleaning toilets and all of that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, I could have an impact on somebody's life just because they're staying within my space
Mhm.
for a short amount of time, right?
Yeah.
And that feels really amazing to me.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think
you
that's important, whatever it is that you choose to do that can bring you additional income or that can be like something that ends up being a mainstream of income.
uh,
Like what you're talking about, it has to meet that quota of I enjoy just doing it.
yeah,
I want to impact people's lives. It's not about the the nitty-gritty things of like, oh, I have to clean this house, I have to do this. Like, what are the positive things? What are the
absolutely.
things you really look forward to? Like you enjoy getting to meet these people that stay. It's like you already know so much about them, from the different things that they're here for to do and what you're helping them to accomplish while they're there with you. And, you know, even to the fact that you walk dogs as well,
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
were
I've got
saying, I gotta go walk
Stellar,
this
the
dog.
Doberman, sitting right here beside me right now.
Yeah. So it's like you're doing things that you enjoy
Yeah,
and that also allow you to live the life that you want to live. That's another
absolutely.
thing you touched on. It's like you want a life you don't need a vacation from. A lot of the income streams that you have, they allow you to be very flexible.
Yes.
It's like you can clean in between guests being there. If they want to clean it while there's there for weeks, they can do that. You can take dogs on days that you want to. You don't have to take them when you don't want to, because like you were talking about, like we see all the time these get rich quick things.
Mhm.
Like I look up all kinds of things about how different people are incoming money, doing passive or side hustles or things. Like literally my Google feed when I go and see what articles are available, it's either productivity, minimalism, like side hustles that have blown up, all these different things. Like, what are
The
these?
trends. Yeah.
Yeah, like what are these trends that people are doing? And I'm like, most of them that have been very successful are because people did something that they really felt good about doing.
Yeah.
I read one about a teacher who was making like six figures selling digital printables for other teachers or for
Yep.
students. And it's like, well, she was a teacher and she just felt like that was a great way to help other teachers to kind of
Absolutely.
give back. And if she sells X amount of downloads for like $10 a piece and they just keep growing and growing over the years, I'm like, she was already doing this stuff,
Yeah.
for her classroom, I'm sure. And she's decided to do this that so that other people can gain those resources. Because teachers are needing stuff all the time, you
Well,
know?
and that's just it, right? And like when we talk about brand. I mean, obviously, your
Yeah.
your podcast is all about embrace your brand, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't know who you are or what it is that you love, then how can you translate that? Like my brand, when I look at my rental suite, is the same as my dog sitting brand, is the same as my life as an investor, is my same as my life as a coach, right?
Mhm.
I am the same person the
Yeah.
entire time, right? My rental suite, I don't advertise it as, luxury and it's the simple things. It's your home away from home. You
Mhm.
have everything that you need for a comfortable stay. Everything is there. You don't have to worry about the details, right? With dog sitting, and I love that you brought that up because like I literally get paid to have an emotional support dog come in and stay with me. Like, what's better than that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have the responsibility of owning a full-time dog, and having to feed it and take it to the vet and all that kind of stuff. I just get to sit and snuggle with it
Yeah.
when it works for me, right? My kids
Uh-huh.
love it. This fits into my life. I love going
Mhm.
for walks. So I love being out in nature. So why not share that with a dog? That's very, very grounding.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's what I want my life to feel like,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, the whole idea of just of knowing yourself, and there's so many ways to do it. It was funny before, when you first asked me to come on the podcast, I just finished watching The Sound of Music, and I hadn't seen it in years, right?
Mhm.
But it was on Netflix or something the other day, and I was like, oh, I haven't watched this in so long. I'm going to watch it again. And what caught me was Maria. She was talking about being a nun, and she was kind of kicked out of the convent lovingly because she wasn't going to be a good nun. She
Mhm.
wasn't going to follow. She just didn't fit in in the whole cadence of being in the convent, right? She was more spirited. She had to run and be free and go live in the mountains and sing and
Mhm.
sing to her heart's content. um all of that kind of stuff. And then, but she was able to use her gifts to become this governess, this nanny, for this family, and found her place there. So she's still the same person. She's still doing the same kinds of things,
Mhm.
but in a different place, right? In a slightly different way that was more aligned to who she was.
Mhm.
And I
Exactly.
mean, and I know it's a movie, but look at the beautiful ending.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, movies are good depictions of things. Like there are many movies I watch and I'm like, oh, there are so like many subliminal messages through
Right?
this of just like, I like, okay, I'll just tell you, I like movies that really have to depict like a feminine hero type
Mm,
aspect, especially one
yeah.
who's like very reluctant at first. They're like they don't see themselves as like this woman who's capable of leading or being a warrior or standing up for herself or whatever or her purpose. But then it's like by the end, she gets it. I'm
Yeah.
like those excite me. I love those. But it's kind of that same thing where we maybe don't know what greater purpose we could serve until kind of after we go through some things and we kind of start putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
of what do I know? What have I done? What do I do? What do I love? Like I literally have past podcast episodes that, talk about those specific things. Like how do we add joy into our marketing?
Mhm.
How do we do it in a way that fulfills us, that lights us up, that we love to do, and that brings that really good energy that we have a good attitude about? And even like the workbook that I made, it's all about this. It's like, what are these things from your past that you're bringing up to right now? You can use the exact same strategy to find a way of how do I turn something I'm passionate about into something that could be profitable for me and,
Absolutely. Yeah.
bring an extra income or just bring an extra joy to your life.
Yep.
I'm like my mother-in-law, she loves little kids. And, for part of her life, she was blessed with keeping a little girl for several years till she was school age. And then after that, she got to keep another little girl and watch her grow up.
Yep.
And she just loved it. It's like it wasn't that she was paid really, really well to be their nanny, but she had such joy just being able to play with them and interact with them. It's like it was good medicine for her.
Mhm.
And I'm like, and now she keeps my daughter on the days that I go to my accounting job and work there, so it's like she does it because she loves it, you
Well,
know?
and that's just it. I mean, so many of us, we have everybody, every
Mhm.
single human being has gifts,
Yes.
has something that they are just naturally great at, whether it's patience. I do not have the patience to take in other people's children. I
Yeah.
know this about myself. I can take in dogs, sure thing.
Yeah.
But I know that about myself. And yeah, like I don't know, it kind of comes back to if you're not sharing those gifts, you're denying the world of something,
Yeah.
right? And you'll never know what it is until you start
Mhm.
sharing it. So, even if I look at oh gosh, at anything, right? Like so a tip, I suppose, for people to help, kind of find some of these things, like using Laura's workbook, right? Like using just some of the prompts that you've got in
Mhm.
there, even looking at, what comes easy to you? What do
Yeah.
you already have that you could um, rent out, that you could sell, that you could do? Like I know people that are just very stylish. They know how to put together an outfit. I'm not one of those people.
Me neither.
So I would pay somebody to come to my house and be like, okay, here are the clothes that you have.
Mhm.
Let's mix and match them. I'll show you how to style them so that you look good using what you already have. And then, give you a list of these are some of the things that you should add to the
Yeah.
wardrobe. So that when I go shopping, it's not like, I'm not just a deer in the headlights. I hate going shopping anymore.
Yeah. And I think too, sometimes it's hard for us to like really objectively look at ourselves and figure out what are the things that are just naturally easy
Yeah.
for me or that I'm good at. And one of the things I like to say is like ask people. Like
Yes.
ask people like, what do you know that I'm good at? I
Yeah.
literally asked my husband last night, I was like, I want to do some volunteer type work. What do you think would be a good fit for me? Because like I might think of volunteer work as like these things, whereas he might see me lending my skills and abilities to something else.
Yeah.
And he mentioned two things that I'm like, these were not technically even on my radar. And I'm like, you have good points. I'm glad you mentioned these because now my wheels are turning of like, these actually would be a really great avenue for me in some capacity. Cause like one, I could build a skill that I really want to build. Another one, I can just do more of what I'm already doing and I'm good at
Yeah.
and it help that person or their, cause or whatever it is that they're doing. I'm like, okay, thank you. Because I didn't really see that. I was thinking, in a different direction where if we just ask people, because they know what things that they would probably come to us for.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and
Yeah.
the other thing too is like when when I left my corporate job, right? I was there for 15 years. I was a strategy development facilitator. So I would take groups and I would travel, they would send me all over North America and I would find they would put me in small groups and I would facilitate these sessions where we'd look at, okay, what is the point of this group? Like, what are we here to achieve?
Mhm.
And how can we sort of work the baby steps backwards to get there and all of that. And then when I left that job, I just kind of played for a while because I could, right? I
Mhm.
didn't have to jump into something immediately. And I kind of accidentally became an entrepreneur because people kept asking, how did you retire at 41 as a single mom? And so I just started teaching them.
Yeah.
So that's where my online course came from. And that's when I started coaching and all of that. But then I had somebody say to me once because you would get so caught up in comparison, especially online, if
Mhm.
we start looking at, oh, I could do this side hustle or that side hustle. And I had somebody who I paid a lot of money to say something about, oh, well, you're just a baby coach. Like, oh, I don't know anything yet. So therefore I need to learn all of these things. And it took me a little bit of time to reflect. And I sort of thought back and I'm like, yeah, I might not have years as, a quote unquote coach,
Mhm.
but, in this stratosphere, in this online space, but I've got 20 years of strategy development and helping people do this stuff. I
Mhm.
know what I'm talking about. I have successfully done this for my entire career, and sort of, again, like having somebody else maybe point that out helps you put things into perspective, right? You're not starting from scratch, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're
There's
starting
so
from
much
a
of
place of experience and a place of, if you're starting from a place of authenticity, right? You're not trying to be somebody else. You're not trying to copy somebody else's thing. If you can look at what are things that are already innate in me that I have already trained on, or learned or whatever, I get so frustrated going into different Facebook groups and stuff like that. And people are like, oh, well, I need a new job. I'm going to go back to school. Which track should I take? And it's like, why? Why are you going back to school? You already know
yeah.
how to do all things. You
Mhm.
don't need somebody to give you a certificate that says you know how to do the things you already know how to do. Just
Yeah.
go do things.
Exactly. You bring up a really good point because it's like we do have a lot of skills and experience. Like I was looking for something to kind of do like on a part-time basis because, still building my business. It's taking a while for it to kind of grow and get to where I want it to be.
Yeah.
And so like I sat there and I was like, I'm making a resume for like the first time in years that I'm actually gonna need to use.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, you can't really put motherhood on there, but man, there are so many like
Transferable skills.
capabilities. Yes, exactly. There's so many capabilities you have when it's like you juggle three kids and making sure that laundry is done and meals are made and all this stuff. It's like you can't put that on there, sadly. I have to put past work experience on there. And I'm thinking, okay, I have little bits here and there, but what ended up working out was like somebody already knew me
Yeah.
and they already just trusted who I was as a person. And they're like, oh, and the fact that she actually has skills, has used this software before, has done this sort of work before, great. Like, I didn't have to win them over with the skills per se, like my whole personality and who I was and associated with them. That's what really drew them in. They're like, she's trainable. I already really like her. So like that's kind of how I got this little accounting job. But you bring up a good point of just what do you already know and are capable of doing?
Yeah.
Because then you can use that skill set maybe in a new sphere,
Yeah.
in a new opportunity, and that was even one of the things that this literally this business of helping people designing their brand, it stemmed from I took a good hard look of what are all the different jobs I've held? What
Mhm.
are the things that I really picked up that I love? And I'm like, every single one of them, I would think of how could this business be better?
Mhm.
What could they do to make it better? And I'm like, okay, obviously business is my go-to, but I love to be creative. I don't just want to like do like the planning and this and that. I'm like, I think in visuals.
Yes. And I do
So
not. So that's
yeah,
why I so love and honor you.
yeah, yeah. So like I think in visuals and people start telling me about this, like I want to do this and that. I'm thinking, oh, okay. I'm picturing lots of really cool stuff here. Like it's coming together kind of like in a movie in my mind or an image or something, and like things just start populating. So it's like you tell me stuff and it's like you turned on Google Images and like things just started flooding. So that's when I knew I'm like, I have to incorporate these two things in the business that I want to do. 'Cause I'm like, I want it to be something that's me and
Yes.
something that takes from my skills. I want it to be something that I can impact others with. And it's like, it kind of took a while to really formulate what in the world this is. I'm like, yes, I design logos, but I'm like, I do so much more. I want to dive into so much more than just your logo. I'm like, it's only a, sprinkle on the cake is the logo. I'm like, there's so much more depth. And so instead of just doing graphics, like it's really just evolved and got into more of that meaning and purpose behind what the brand is. Cause you really have to just embrace yourself.
Yeah.
What are you good at? What are you really wanting to accomplish?
Mhm.
So, I feel like that's that piece of the puzzle that you have to have when it comes to turning any type of passion or side hustle or potential form of income into something that's actually profitable,
Yeah.
that's truly successful.
And I think, you know, what I direct a lot of people to is really looking at where some of your opinions come from, right?
Mhm.
So like uh, it's kind of the idea of who profits from you feeling a certain way. Okay, so who profits from you feeling like you're not good enough to start a business? Who profits from you not being able to proudly say, I'm a mom on my resume, and these are all of the great skills that I have
Mhm.
learned through doing this 24/7 for however many years, right? Um, and it's only a new phenomenon that we have to sort of justify on paper in words what our skills are and then be judged by somebody else's standard to say whether that's good enough or not to be part of this business, this job, this company. It's relatively new and we don't actually have to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So, when I think back to my mother, my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked. The economy was different. The world was different. That was a thing that was very, very typical in my hometown, right? The dads went and worked at the manufacturing plants and the moms stayed home with the kids. Um, but my mom, she, as we got to school and she had other things, she had time on her hands. So she started doing some other things. And she, instead of applying for jobs, she was an immigrant. She, spoke good English, but she has a very thick accent. And so she was always very self-conscious about that. And, I couldn't see her going into a company and, sitting behind a counter and waiting for people to come and talk to her. That's not her. She's get your hands dirty and help somebody. So she cleaned houses um, for years and it just started naturally. She didn't go look for a company that cleaned houses to see if she could be one of their workers. She just found people that needed help. And typically her customers were older, right? So she ended up working in like a retirement community, assisted living um, building that was close by our house. She could walk there, and she had clients that would call her directly. Right? She didn't work for the retirement place. She worked for the actual individual people. And really, what it ended up being was she was company for them. They didn't have a lot of visitors, or they needed help, just changing their bed sheets. Like lifting up a mattress is heavy, especially if you're old and kind of fragile, right? She would vacuum, she would dust, she would pick up the things and move them and dust things around. But really, she was there for a couple hours. They all had very small apartments. But she was there for a couple hours and was just providing companionship. And then
Mhm.
their children, if they lived far away, they would call her and just check in. Oh, how is mom doing? Or how's my dad doing? And, she would kind of be the eyes and ears for um for the children of these elderly parents. And that was such a beautiful space. It was so gratifying to her. She never if she heard me talking about it right now, she'd be like, "What are you talking about? I just help people." Like, whatever. She wasn't paid a lot because she never asked for more. She could have been paid so much more because her services were so valuable and people did
Mhm.
value them. But she didn't have the I don't know if it was the self-worth or whatever to ask for for more or to charge what she was actually worth. But, you know, just being able to do something like that, and that was just part of her day. Like if she wasn't working, she was visiting an elderly friend or, you know, baking some cookies and bringing them over or taking someone to their doctor's appointment or whatever. That's just what she did. That's who she is.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And yeah, she was able to make some extra money doing that. She could have turned it into something much bigger, but that wasn't her. And that wasn't the time. That wasn't what that it wasn't the time for that
yeah.
kind of stuff. But now I think, you know, there's so many more opportunities for stuff like that. And again, you don't have to ask somebody permission to do it. Just do it. Just be you and
Hmm.
solve a problem for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can solve a problem. They will gladly pay you to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of what most businesses are in. It's like they really good businesses off obviously and often solve a problem
Yeah.
for somebody. They provide a solution, they provide a result. And, I'm glad that you shared that story about your mom because, not everything I think that we do has to be something that builds an exponential amount of income. You
Yeah.
know, it more or less if it's fulfilling to you, if it feels really good to you and you make a little money at it, it's better that it feels good to your heart and to your soul than it does if it fills your bank account.
Yeah. You know, I look at so dog sitting, for
Mhm,
example. So I have Sailor here. She's a 7-year-old Doberman. She's got arthritis and severe separation anxiety.
mm,
So she can never be left alone, which is why she comes to me because her people need to work.
yeah.
Right. And so her mom was working at home for a time, but now she's back out in the workforce. So a couple days a week, Sailor comes to my house. And, you know, I love it, and I didn't know these people at all. I met them through my business, right? I
Mhm,
advertised on, rover.com as a platform where you can just advertise your dog sitting services, whether it's house sitting or dog walking or whatever. Um, but yeah, so I found Sailor and she comes to my house and yeah, it's a bit, I mean, because she can't ever be left alone, that limits me a little bit. But
mhm,
I mean, whatever, on Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm in my house anyway. That's when I get to do podcasts. That's when I get to do all my computer stuff. That's when I get to, you know, check out the stock market, do some extra investing stuff, do some research, whatever. And then I can plan, you know, my going out for the other days. And it doesn't feel restrictive at
mhm.
all. But I'm providing a service, right? She's the only one here. She was going to doggy daycare, which is another great avenue. It would be awesome to just play with a whole bunch of dogs every
Yeah.
day. But that was too busy for her with her arthritis and everything else. It was going to be too much for an older dog. So even on my Rover profile, right, I say that I specialize in senior dogs because they're quiet and they don't mess up my house and you know they walk slow and I kind of like
Yeah.
to walk slow. Um and I can give that personalized service where they're usually the only one that I have at a time.
Mhm.
So they are part of my family for a certain amount of time. And people will pay for that. People will pay extra for that because they're not their pets, their beloved pets aren't just put in a cage and left alone to bark at the other dogs for hours at a time. They're like sleeping in my bed and they're laying on my couch and
Yeah.
they're picking up the crumbs and you know all the things that they would have at home. Um, and that is valuable. That is
Mhm.
a valuable service,
Yep. Yep.
right?
I mean, the things like that, it's not something you would think of right off the bat. And sometimes it takes a little while to figure out what it is that's ideal, that's
Yeah,
fitting for you. It's like you probably thought, well, I could dog sit, but you ended up turning it into more of like, this is a VIP experience for senior dogs, and it
yeah,
fits ideally for the kind of work that I want to do.
absolutely.
And as you were talking about, like with your mom and the housekeeping and stuff that she did, I had a season in my life where I did clean houses.
Mm,
I cleaned houses for people that I knew.
yep,
They're busy. They didn't have the time. They just wanted someone else to come in for a couple of hours, get things cleaned up. And I'm like, I needed something.
yep,
And that actually turned out to be very good for me because it's like, okay, well, it paid for my fuel to go where I needed to go. It paid for some little extras here and there. but also it gave me time to be productive.
Mhm.
And about every time I would go clean houses, that was my time where podcasts were on in my earbuds, YouTube videos talking about all kinds of different stuff. Like I was learning so much through online, courses or videos or podcasts and things. And all of that stuff that I learned while doing that
Mhm.
is stuff that really helps me now
Yeah.
with what I'm doing in my business. And
Yeah.
that was just something that felt good then and there.
Yeah.
And I think that even too with that, seasons can happen where you might try this for a while and it may work great. You may try your hand at network marketing. You may try like, oh, I think I want to maybe try babysitting. I even volunteered at the school and ended up becoming a substitute teacher for a
Mhm.
while. I was like, it was a great way to make some extra income. I realized then and there that I'm like, I'm not really cut out for this. This is way too high energy for me.
Yeah.
And I need to find something else I enjoy doing. But hey, I wouldn't have known had I not
Yeah.
tried.
I've got friends that are, so she was a teacher and she chose to stay home and homeschool her kids. Her
Mhm.
husband is still a teacher. And so she got a part-time gig working at, well, not even working at the local college where they're teaching early childhood development. And she would be like the supervisor. She would go on site visits and, kind of do the scorecard or whatever for
Mhm.
student teachers to be like, oh, hey, you can watch out for this thing or, whatever. So even if she's not technically in the industry anymore, she still has the skills and knows what to look for and can be valuable when she has the time, right?
Yeah.
When it suits her. Like we all have these amazing skills. It's just
Mhm.
finding what lights you up, finding what you're, and again, what you already have, do and know.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of of
Yeah.
doing that. Like if you need to make some quick cash real fast, look around your house. There's probably some things that you could just get rid of, like just
Yeah.
a few
Yeah.
things.
Because then you
We
don't have
all,
to expend out any more energy than what you're already doing. You don't have to, go back to college. You don't have to pick up a new skill or do something that's totally out of your wheelhouse. You
yeah.
can utilize what you have. And, like I know that my mom's not really the entrepreneur type,
Mhm.
but I've told her so many times, I'm like, you have a knack for decorating. You make
Mm,
the prettiest wreaths to go on your front door for like every single season. She's made all of mine that I've ever put up. And I'm like, you literally could make a business selling really pretty wreaths.
yeah,
I mean, that's not something she wants to go into business doing. She likes doing it.
that's fair.
She likes making them. She's given some away and she goes and she's like, I don't hot glue anything in. I just change it out when it's different season. And, she just has fun doing that. And it's simple as that. If you're like, I need an extra way to make some more income, or I want to actually have a business of my own that allows me to maybe replace some other full-time income, part-time income, whatever it is, you know, think of what things you're already doing.
Yeah.
Like even
Even
with
the
this,
example,
yeah,
even
even
the
with this
example of
accounting
selling.
job, it's
Yeah.
the same thing. I'm like, I used QuickBooks for years at a previous job.
Mhm.
And I have people skills. About every job I've ever held, I've been in customer service or something. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I can answer a phone. I can help people through things. I don't do a lot of that. But then I'm like, I'm really good at numbers. Math and I get along quite well. And if I can't figure something out, I'm like a go getter and problem solver. I'm like, I am going to figure out where this number's off by. I'm going to figure it out. So, I mean, it,
Exactly.
it works.
Yeah. Even the example of selling things that no longer fit in your house or you don't want or whatever, that
Mhm.
is a business.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I've tried selling things on Facebook Marketplace and just the amount of drama that comes out of it sometimes. And,
Yeah.
just responding to this, it's still available. Is it still available? And, the negotiating and
Hmm.
lowballing and all of that kind of stuff. It can be very, very frustrating, but some people love it.
Yeah.
Like if I knew a person who I could just bring all of this stuff to and they would sell it for me and,
Mhm.
keep 50% of the profit. I don't care. That's a business
Yeah. Yeah.
because they
Online
already
Facebook
love doing it.
consignment. I mean, that's the next big thing,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, right? Some people love doing it. So
Mhm.
if you can find the things that you love doing and just find somebody else that doesn't love doing that, but
Yeah.
needs it, there's a business.
Hmm.
It can be so simple. And then it doesn't have to feel like work because you already love doing it.
Exactly. I literally thought of like between this job that I have now and this business I'm growing, I was like, the other option was I could help people organize their houses.
Mhm.
Really could. And I even had like, I talked to Kaylee about this, and she's like, I would pay you to just come do it for me.
Yep.
Not teach me or show me how to do it. Just come do it for me. And like, I don't have to lift a finger. Be like, okay, see, like sometimes you just got to ask, like, hey, I'm thinking about this. What are your ideas? You might find people who are like, I would so pay you to come and do that. You'd be like, great. Let's set up a time and a date for me to do this, and we'll start at this price. Does this feel good for you? It's like sometimes you can accidentally get yourself into a business,
Yes.
or you can purposefully go out there and find something. I mean, like my husband has a handyman side job, and he really sort of accidentally got into doing that.
Yeah.
But, people need someone to do a specific service. And if you have that skill or that ability, by all means, you have a gift to
Yep.
give someone that can help them in some shape, form, fashion that they may not have, paid someone else to do, but they might
Absolutely.
definitely pay you because they're like, oh, hey, I'm so glad that you do this.
Well, it's so funny. I remember in my corporate job, talking to my boss one day, and I don't know if we were doing like a annual review or something like that,
Mm,
performance review or something. And she asked me, she's like, what is your dream job? I'm like, I want to be the idea person. She's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I love to brainstorm stuff and be like, oh yeah, and we can do this. Oh yeah, and we can do this.
yeah.
Um, and she kind of looked at me funny. She's like, well, I don't know if that exists here. I'm like, it probably doesn't because I keep giving you these ideas and they go nowhere. Because they're not ready for them. But again, I could have gone in as a consultant. If I was a consultant and they were asking my opinion on things, I would have been paid very, very handsomely to just give my ideas. That's what
Hmm.
a consultant is, right? You don't have to do the work, but you can provide the ideas. And I get to do that. I mean, look at, the last little while that we've been talking, how many business ideas have we thrown out?
Lots,
Right? That
lots of
hopefully
ideas.
sparked some creativity in somebody, so that they could look at, oh yeah, I'm actually really good at that. I can I can maybe do that, right? And that's what people call me.
Yeah.
People come to me and we talk like real one-to-one, real human being. Um, through my pocket coaching or through a clarity session where we're looking at, what do you actually want your life to feel like? And that's where we have these great brainstorming sessions and we look at getting you excited about your life again.
Hmm.
Excited about all kinds of different ways that you can make money by being yourself. And then you jump over to Laura and she makes it all beautiful and
Yes.
so that everything stands out so that you can tell people about what it is that you do, what gifts that you offer. And it's a beautiful thing. It's pretty great.
Yeah. We make a great team, I
I
think.
think so.
There you go. If you're unsure about what you want to do, go talk to Wendy and y'all can brainstorm that. And then when you have your business idea, come back to me and we'll like, get all the foundations set up, make it look pretty, put it online, market it, however you want to do it.
Yep, I love
I mean, yeah, that's
it.
there we go. We should end on that note. Like you have the whole package right here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for being a wonderful guest today. And it's always just a pleasure talking with you. I feel like it's just, we could go on for a very long time conversing about all sorts of things like that. But I know we have more things to do. Um, so anyway, thank you so much. And I definitely am going to put in the show notes Wendy's contact if you want to go and find her on Instagram, LinkedIn, her website. If you're like, I need some help figuring out a way to kind of make some additional income, what I want to do with my life, how I want to love it again, definitely go and reach out to her, follow her, and get set up so that you can start doing that and making a difference and doing something you love.
Absolutely. And that's what I do every week on my podcast, Fire Yourself First.
Yes.
Same thing, right? Just throwing out different ideas. I love to interview people that are doing fun and different things, in the hopes that it inspires somebody else to, get out of what they should be doing and doing what they love.
Exactly, exactly. Yes, I will link your podcast too. And as always, just like go embrace a life you love and embrace your brand. That's the whole point of this podcast is just to inspire you to love doing business. Like, do it with excellence, do it with joy, and just love the journey that you're on. So, thank you again, Wendy, and we'll see you
Thanks,
all
Laura.
soon.